So I had a buddy of mine ask me about the starting position on deadlift. What's a good way to get into an ideal starting position on deadlift? The sumo deadlift specifically. A lot of people like to get into that vertical position. I myself think that's the best way for myself to deadlift, especially in gear. I've been trying to think of some good advice to give him because there's so much that goes into giving advice on deadlift technique. This particular technique, especially sumo, there's so many things that factor into it. Your strengths and weaknesses related to the lift, your proportions, torso length, arm length, leg length, all that stuff. There's just so many things that can go into making this an easy transition, a hard transition, or there's just way too many things to attack. So I was trying to think, what is something that is very general that people can try if they want to get into that more vertical position on a sumo deadlift. And also, that being said, it is a lot easier, in my opinion, to get into that vertical position on sumo deadlift when you're in gear. When you are raw, when you were trying to get into that vertical position, your body is your support system. Your structure, muscles, tendons, all that shit, that's your support system. That's what's holding you up. That's what's holding you in a position. When you're lifting in gear, your briefs or your suit, that's what's kind of holding you in position. So it's not as taxing or uncomfortable to get into that position because you have something basically cupping you and holding you up. With all that being said, I thought of something that would be a good first thing to try. And watching his sumo deadlift, I thought of this. A lot of people start their sumo deadlift the same way he does. You go to the bar first before you descend with your hips. Like, you kind of do a straight leg and you go down and grab the bar and then you pull your hips down, or you kind of do a combination. Your hips come down and you drop your chest to get to the bar. I don't like doing that. There's a lot of prominent people in the sport who say that is the best way to get into your sumo position, because when you grab the bar, you are pulling yourself down into position, which is giving a stretch reflex, kind of like a slingshot. So you're using the bar to pull yourself down into position. But in my opinion, that's very inconsistent, because you are so far away from the starting position once you start to make that progression towards the starting position, if that makes sense. Let's say ideally you want to start here, but when you get into position by bringing your hands first and then dipping your hip down, you have so much more distance to travel to get back up to where you want to be. Now, don't take this specifically what I say. I'm just going to use degrees, but I'm not being specific. So I don't know how many fucking degrees it is. Just roll with me. So let's say the person like myself who squats down into position and tries to keep that vertical position as long as I can, and then that last little bit where I have to transition to maybe hinge or bend a little bit to get to the bar, that might take me 5 degrees off where I want to be. So trying to get back that 5 degrees, the chances of you getting back into the right spot are a lot better. Now, you take the person who brings themselves down to the bar, grabs their hands, brings their hips down first, you're getting yourself 10 degrees off. You're starting so far away from where you actually want to initiate the deadlift. That means you have 10 degrees of travel. You have twice the distance to cover to get back. So that gives you twice the amount of opportunities to get it wrong. From rushing, from feeling weak, to just starting out of position to begin with, you are giving yourself twice as many chances not to get back to where you want to be. So, in my opinion, it is a lot more efficient to squat down to the bar slowly while keeping an upright position, and then I only go as low as I need to where I can reach the bar. And a lot of the times that's going to look like a half squat. In my opinion, with your hips up higher is a good starting position on sumo deadlift. If it looks like a half squat, not a parallel squat, that's basically where you want to be, in my opinion. So that's a good first thing to try, is try squatting down to the bar and only as far as you need to get your hands to the bar. And by this, you can still hinge forward a little bit to get to the bar. I'm not saying you have to squat down to the bar till your ass touches the ground. No, I'm just saying only go as low as you need to get into that ideal starting position. And it's gonna take some practice. Hey baby girl. So try that first and see how it goes, and move on from there, and maybe we'll try to give a little more advanced setup advice on the sumo deadlift. I always think of cool things to say after the fact. It's the story of my life. I've always been that person where it's like, after something happened, like, oh, I should have said that. Yeah, that was so good. That would have been so funny. Anyway, in regards to the video I made about starting position of deadlift, something that I think about, if I think about bending over to get to the bar, I think about it being in my back. If I think about squatting to the bar, I think about it being in my hips, glutes, hamstrings. Like, I don't want the weight, the pressure to be in my back. I want it to be in my legs, hips, glutes. So if I was ever to bend over to get to the bar first, already I feel like the lift is in my back. And to get it out of my back, I have to get myself so far away from that. I have to pull myself so far to get back vertically, to get back into the position to where it's in my hips and my legs. And even then, I don't feel like it ever truly gets out of my back. I feel like it's there to some degree. And to be honest, I don't think you should deadlift with your back. I see a lot of people who will emphasize their lockout by throwing their torso back, or will start the deadlift by throwing their chest up, or like heaving up, using their back to start the lift and to finish the lift. And personally, I think that's wrong. I don't have the science to back that up, but in my mind and in my experiences, your torso shouldn't do much other than stay as tight as possible. There shouldn't be any movement coming from that area. When I get ready to go for deadlift and I get upright into my starting position, my torso is rock solid. It does not move. And the lift is started with my hips, my glutes, my hamstrings. And then as I squat up through the weight, as soon as I transition to where my hips come through and I squeeze my glutes, your torso gets erect, just structurally speaking. Like, if your torso is locked in and you squat and you stand up and you squeeze your glutes and you bring your hips through, the only way your torso can go is up. As long as it is rock solid and tight and it's fixed, the only place it can go is up. Like, structurally, there's no other way it can go. So all your torso is doing is being along for the ride and being locked in and being as tight as fuck. As long as that's a rock, you're not going to have any problems. It's when people try to use their back to move the weight. I don't use my back to move the weight. I use my back to keep my upper body rock solid. The tighter that is, the more efficient the deadlift's going to be. So think of it that way also when you're thinking about how to get to the bar on deadlift. If I'm bending over, it's in my back, and I don't want that. If I squat down, it's in my glutes, my hips, and my hamstrings. So put some thought to that one too.